There we go. Now it's recording. So,
Yay.
so, um, hey Sass, our assumed viewer. I would like to begin by apologizing because I was on a good half-hour tear, and Masters can back me up on this.
Absolutely.
And I didn't realize that my Streamlabs OBS was frozen, and I didn't record any of that. So,
okay, you guys didn't want to know it anyways. It was all boring stuff.
yeah, all pretty boring stuff. Short version is a girl that I was interested in might actually be interested with me. It might actually be interested in me.
Had been.
Because
it has been a month since she messaged you and you did not respond.
I was getting there. And I'm changing churches. That
is the short of it.
That is the very, very short version. But that has gotten me thinking about a lot of things in the broader sense. Because every time you have like major things happen in your life, you start to, or at least you rightfully should. Anytime you're about to make a major life decision, you should not just walk blindly into it. Please, Lord, someone get that through your head. Don't just walk dead straight face first into a wall because you just didn't think, oh, I guess that might actually be there. I saw this meme earlier this week about someone who had painted on a wall a tunnel. They just painted a mural of a tunnel on this wall, and they set up a camera of all the people who walked into it. And more people than you would imagine walked into this stupid tunnel. And not just, kids on their phone, because there's a lot of those, but like businessmen, elderly ladies, all kinds of, just like, oh, there's a tunnel. That's a shortcut to where I'm going. And just bam, right into the wall, which was hilarious to me. But they didn't stop long enough to think about where they were going or what they were doing to connect the pieces that what they were seeing or what it seemed to be was not going to be a beneficial avenue for them to get to what they were heading towards. They just like, oh, I'm going to go through there. And they were painfully corrected. I'm shocked that this kind of thing was not outlawed somehow or some way or another. Or have like caution tape put over it by the police or something. But with that going on, there's going to be a lot of shift in my life personally because I'm going to be moving, I'm going to be changing jobs, I'm going to be changing churches, going to be trying to get back in. I mean, we'll
get back in what?
Into the
proverbial ring.
Well, here's the thing. I don't know if I've ever really been in it to begin with, so I don't know if I could ever really be back in it. Yes, there was the one time I almost married a girl, but that was such a non-experience. Oh, okay, no, I take it back. That was
a heck of an experience. What are you talking about?
That was a heck of an experience, but it in terms of successfully entering into a relationship, nothing happened in that regard. One of my Sunday school kids, so I use that a lot more comfortably as a teaching tool now than I have in times past. Mm-hmm. And one of my Sunday school kids, he's heard the whole story like 3 different times, and I was playing.
We've talked about that too.
Yeah, and I was playing Call of Duty with him earlier this week, and he has this girl.
I officially have that downloaded now, by the way.
Oh, we'll have to play that sometime. And anyway, so he has this girl.
I'm far better at that than I am at
Monster Hunter.
No, not I almost said D&D.
Yeah.
Fortnite.
Yeah. The building in Fortnite is.
Yep, the building in Fortnite kills it for me.
Like, the gimmick that makes Fortnite is the thing that's killing it for everybody who cannot build a 400-foot tower in 12 seconds. Anyway, so he has this girl that he's interested in, and she plays Call of Duty, and so she was there in the call with us while we were playing Call of Duty, and she's playing along, and I have never met her or anything. She's from a different church, something else, and we were going back and forth, and I forget precisely the context of how it went, but she said that she'd mentioned that she was a girl. It was pretty apparent, but I made a joke that there are no girls on the internet, and he cuts back at me and he says, "Yeah, you found that out firsthand."
Oh. Oh no, I forget. You attack on sight. Go away.
What are you dying to?
A giant boar.
Oh, a hoglin?
No, the actual boar thing, not the pig people.
Yeah, the pig people are piglins. The hoglin is the boar.
Are you a hoglin? Oh, I hit him and he got hearts on him. I'm confused. Does he love me now?
I don't know.
Oh, nope, he doesn't love me. He attacked me.
Maybe he does.
Some people pay extra for that.
Oh man, glad my Sunday school kids aren't here now. Anyway, so yeah, that's a story we may get into some future point. But my successful relationship experience is practically nil.
He gives leather and
what?
He's just a pig.
Yep.
Except he gives leather.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little disappointing.
Yeah. So in terms of me getting back into the dating scene or whatever it is, yeah, that's definitely something that is not really I don't want to say it's not an attractive prospect. I'm not saying that I don't want to do it. I'm not saying that I don't know what I'm saying.
I have absolutely no desire to get back in the ring.
Well,
I am perfectly fine being all by my lonesome.
Well, as it turns out, I've never really been in it, so I'm operating from a perspective of not having been there. I have been listening to a lot of YouTube videos, which I probably shouldn't be listening to, about the detriments of marriage upon men, and I'm like, okay. Some of you guys have a point. You do have a legitimate point on some of these things that you're saying. However, no. It's mostly just a lot of guys who are, bitter, angry divorcees, and she stole the house. I don't see my kids, and it's like, okay, well, I understand. Yeah, you guys got done wrong, but that doesn't mean that everybody that everything happens that way. And then, oh well, look at this. It's it's a 70% divorce rate. And I'm like, yeah, across all people, but yeah.
No, it's not a 70% divorce rate anymore.
What is it now?
It's down into like the 20s now.
That does not.
People still like using that stat, but it's fairly low.
Well, here's the thing. I believe the divorce. Let's see. Now I'm gonna do research. Darn you. It's not what this story is about. This show is about just random spewing of nonsense. Now you're having me do research. Something wrong with you, masters.
You're the one doing the research.
You are forcing me into it.
I forced you into nothing, good sir.
Let's see. American divorce rate is
I tried to look it up the other day, but the graphs were confusing, so I stopped.
Yeah, they're doing it per 1,000 people.
Yeah.
That's not very helpful. I'm just looking for a percentage.
Yep, that was the same exact phrase I said. Just give me a percentage, dang it.
Well, let's search for percentage.
Dang it, Bobby.
50%. Okay, so here's the thing.
That is inaccurate.
However, about 40 to 50% of married couples in the United States divorce. This is a article from the American Psychological Association, and it is dated. When is it dated? May. Is it May? Where is the date of this article? Does not help me if this is like 6 years old. But I mean, I could definitely see that it falling off, particularly with the some of the psychology behind. I'm pretty sure this is this year. I'm not seeing an actual date of publication, unfortunately. But with a lot of people who are in this movement for against marriage, I can definitely see there being a lower divorce rate just because there are fewer people who are getting married to begin with.
Yep, that too.
Yeah, but
I was going to say that, but you were rambling, so I was letting you get to your point first.
Well, the point here actually is that the divorce rate is always skewed upward because it just talks about the total number of divorces, period. So if there are 100 couples that get together and 50 of them get divorced, well, that's not really, then 50%. But what they don't really talk about is the fact that there is a much higher percentage rate for repeat divorces. So if you've been married and got divorced and got married again, it goes from like a 50% rate to like a 70% rate that you're going to get divorced with the second person. And for every consecutive marriage after that, it becomes much more likely that you will get divorced. So there's a lot to be said for making sure you got it right the first time.
Yes, agreed.
With that being the case, though, there's the total stat being quoted is like, okay, well, 50% of people in the United States get divorced. Well, how about first marriages? That is probably a much lower stat because they just lump all of them in. And some people have gotten married 3 times in 1 year. I've met them. I understand how they were divorced. I understand how they were divorced 3 times in the same year. I'm like, I can't believe you convinced someone to marry you 1 time in 1 year, let alone 2 other people. I'll be honest, my success rate on getting anyone to marry me so far has been 0. There are some people who would have said yes, but I didn't ask them.
Why is there a skeleton in the nether? Go away.
There have always been skeletons in the nether. Always.
Doesn't mean I like it.
But it shouldn't be a surprise to you.
It was a surprise in that instance.
Okay. Anyway, I don't know what I was getting to over that. I was going somewhere.
You were talking about getting back on the bandwagon for dating.
Yeah. I have been out of it for the last 6 years. Not just by happenstance, but by decision for the most part.
For the most part.
Yeah, when you have an exceptionally negative experience, it's kind of difficult to get back in there.
Can concur.
Yeah. It's a bit daunting. That being said, I am becoming conscious of my own lonely nature. I'm not particularly bothered by it, but I'm conscious of it. And that is not something that I could say of myself a couple years ago. I knew that I was alone, but I wasn't I was like, yeah, I'm alone. But it wasn't, I was lonely. So that's the thing. I think I could avoid it by just saying screw everything and going living in the woods. I think I would be pretty happy with that, actually. It is always on the list of things of potential options. Which is probably not a good thing, but it's always on the list. It's like, should I just say goodbye to everything and go drive my car till it runs out of gas and then walk off in the middle of the woods and never be heard from again? It's a possibility. I could probably make it at least 5 or 10 years.
A week.
No, I could make it longer than a week. That was actually something that me and Kuya were talking about doing a couple years ago. He has a bunch of land down in, or not he has, but his family has a bunch of land down in Kentucky, which is kind of undeveloped. And when I say kind of, I mean it's absolutely undeveloped. It's a forest in the mountains with a river and a stream and a lake and whatever else is there. And I was like, hey, we should do a survival trip where we spend like a week out there and just bring a couple of knives and go to town, and we will rough it. And he thought at the time that was a great idea. And the closer we got to doing it, he thought it was less of a good idea.
Well, it's Kuya.
And we did not do that.
What do you expect?
I mean, in fairness, there are some definite hindrances in that regard, but it's kind of one of those life goals that I have, that I want to go out and do a week by myself with zero preparation. Well, I mean, not zero preparation. You always prepare before you go into a place, but to have like, no tent, no fire starters, no nothing, and I'm just gonna rough it for a week.
My parents are preparing to go on Naked and Afraid. Or not Naked and Afraid. The other one where they send you out with absolutely nothing. I don't know, one of those survival shows. She was trying to tell me how they were going to start a fire and all this other stuff. I was like, okay, you guys go right ahead with that.
Okay.
Have fun.
So I have met your mom and dad.
Yeah.
And you said
yeah.
and you said Naked and Afraid, and my first thought, no offense to the lovely parents of Masters, may they never ever see this or hear this, but was like, I don't think they'd be the ones who would be afraid in that situation. Oh man. Wow. I take it whatever show they're trying to get on at this point is one where they get to keep their clothes on?
I don't know.
Okay. I mean, I don't want to see that, but if they do get on, it's kind of like a train wreck.
I don't think they're actively trying to get on the show.
I mean,
I think they are.
A couple years ago, when I lived in a different place,
I think it's a fantasy thought of theirs.
Let's say I lived somewhere else, and we had a oil tanker blow up underneath a bridge, and it burnt down. And I walked over there despite all the poisonous, black, noxious smoke from all the oil and rubber and asphalt and concrete that was on fire. Just because I wanted to see what was going on. I didn't want it. It's like, I don't want to see that. I don't need to see that. But there's that curious part of me that's like, okay, I think that there is a part of Schadenfreude in me that would really appreciate that viewing experience. That is something. Yeah. That's unique. Wow. Oh. The things you hear.
Oh my goodness. The changing of the nether has made it so much more difficult to find a nether fortress.
I have not.
Do they even exist anymore?
They do.
Am I looking in void unfruitfully? Oh crap!
Died?
Yep, in lava.
I say the Nether Fortress thing, they do still have them, and they also have other structures in there called bastions now. But I have not been in the Nether in a long time. What was the last? What was the version that we were using the last time that we were on the what do you call them? I've totally forgotten the name of the streamer group that I used to be a part of. That's doing a lot of good things.
SGA Craft?
That's the one! What version were we using on SGA Craft? Do you recall? Did we get into 15?
1.14?
1.14, okay. Yeah, that was the last time I was in the Nether. I've probably got about 20 hours or more into a private world of mine, and it's 15 dot something, and I have not been into the Nether at all, and don't have any immediate plans to get there at all. It's just not a priority.
Well, the only reason I was going into the Nether was to find another fortress so that I could get blaze rods to make blaze powder, so that I could A, make ender chests, and B, find a closer in portal so that I don't have to travel 10,000 blocks to get to the one that we already have.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that was.
I say mine is mildly modded, so I've been getting some nether drops in the overworld. I don't exactly know what mod that is, but it's happening.
What do you mean?
I've killed there's like these specialized mobs that show up from time to time that I don't know what mod they're from, but like it's like an aggressive creeper or a flashing spider or something like that, and you'll kill them.
How did you get that?
I downloaded it. I'm using what's it called? Multi-MC as a launcher.
Me too.
And I dropped that in there, and basically they've only dropped, I think, gassed tiers so far. They might have dropped a piece of quartz once. I don't recall. I'd have to check through my inventory, which I'm not going to do right now. But yeah, there's just some nether drops that are popping up in the overworld. So I'm assuming at some point or another I might find something that would, make it so I don't ever actually have to go to the nether. I am not particularly technically minded, so I don't even know how I would update my present world to the present iteration, 1.16 or whatever it is. But yeah, fun things indeed. It's not really a high priority for me. I'm content just playing casually, slowly and casually.
Me too. So the only thing I'm trying to do, I'm trying to get to a point where I have fully upgraded tools.
Yeah.
So that I have to worry less about stopping mining to go and make more tools.
Fair.
That is all I want.
Fair. I need to make a fishing machine on mine so that I can get some mending books. But that requires work.
That doesn't work anymore.
It doesn't work anymore?
Nope.
Do you have to trade for them or something?
Well, just fish farms in general don't work. If that's what you're talking
about. Oh. Well, that's unfortunate because that was a very effective means of...
yeah, that's why they took it out.
Again, bed mining in the nether is going to disappear rather quickly.
Let's see here. Install a mod. Add a mod. Download. So I just downloaded Optifun.
Yeah, I don't think I have that. Probably should. Don't. It just... I forget what we were talking about before. Oh, about survival and... Actually, I was trying to get into the thought process behind making major transitions in life. And the fact that there should at least be one. You should not just run blindly into what you're about to do. Which is a form of personal responsibility. And that is something that has been kind of bugging me a lot recently. The more I've been seeing a lot of people just trying to avoid responsibility for their actions, for their station in life, for everything that's going on around them. And that's not to say that I'm some sort of paragon of wisdom in that regard, but it is kind of frustrating to me that everyone's like, it's not my fault. And I'm like, yeah, it kind of is. And by kind of, I mean it absolutely is.
Did it correct.
See, this is kind of the perspective that I've gotten from being a Sunday school teacher for the last 6 years, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I have zero compassion whatsoever for stupid people.
I have zero compassion, period.
I mean, I'm pretty much there too, but like doubly so for stupid people. Being a Sunday school teacher, there's some things you run into. Like when one of your Sunday school kids decides to go out and have that illegitimate child at, 16. And you're like, well, that was really stupid. Oh, it just happened. No, it didn't.
No, that doesn't just happen. That there are things that you did in order for that to happen.
Like there's I sat down with some of my kids, fortunately kids who had not had that situation, but who were kind of trending into a bad place. In case some of my church kids hear this, it was not you. It was some ones who were at the camp that I have counseled at for the last couple of years. We were having they were trending in a bad direction, and it just so happened that I was in a good position to provide this insight for them. When that happens, there's a lot of steps along the way. And every one of those steps is another opportunity for you to say, this is probably not what I should be doing. I should stop. And if you wind up in a situation where you didn't stop, it is entirely your fault. And I have no compassion. I have no understanding. I have no, kind words for you in that regard. Because, quite frankly, you're an idiot. You're an idiot. You're an idiot. You're an idiot. Yeah. I love it. Okay. Sidebar. I love the Jim Carrey Grinch movie. I do. I understand it has flaws. I understand people who have nostalgia.
It has flaws? What?
It does have a couple flaws. I know. But I understand that it doesn't quite fill the nostalgia need for some people who are, the thorough Ravenscroft purist, of which I have a lot of appreciation for that one too. But I really appreciate some of the choices and stuff that are made in terms of the performance and the character that he was able to create about a live action Grinch. It's great. And then I met some people who think that the one that was made at like the end of 2018, the animated one with Benedict Cumberbatch.
I haven't seen it.
Don't. It is abysmal, and and when you stop and think for just a half a second about some of the things that are presented in it, you're like, not only is the Grinch not likable, every other person in this entire town is unlikable. They're giving terrible life advice, and it's just bad. It's not entertaining. It's not funny. It's not beneficial. It doesn't do it. There is nothing positive to be said about it. But they're like, it's the best version of the Grinch ever, and I'm like, no, it just isn't. So I have a lot of appreciation for the live action Grinch, and it's live action done right by me. Not all live action is. And I just saw a bunch of things this week, and I've been trying to avoid spoilers and stuff, so I haven't clicked on any of them. But sometimes the headlines just catch your eye, and you're like, oh, don't do that. There are a bunch of articles going around about changes that they want to make to the live action Avatar: The Last Airbender show. And
I don't want to hear that.
I don't want to hear it either, and I'm not going to tell it to you. I'm not going to put it out there because I haven't read any of the articles. All I've done is see that they exist, and by the titles, I'm like, did you learn nothing from M. Night Shyamalan? Did you learn absolutely nothing from the man? When you take a beloved classic and you try and update it into the modern, the best case scenario you can do is you can add in a couple enhancing story beats. Like, there's a movie called, this is a chick flick, so actually they all are, but you have to kind of, go with it. There's a movie called You've Got Mail, and it stars Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. It's from like the early 90s. And it is a retelling of a classic story with Judy Garland and I think Van Johnson. And it's the story of these two people who meet in real life and they hate each other's guts. But they have this pen pal they've been writing to for years, and they love the pen pal, and they're talking about meeting up with the pen pal, and they're gonna, they're getting swept off their feet by the person that they are with this pen pal, but they don't actually know who the pen pal is in real life. And they set up a meeting, and they don't actually meet because the person gets there and sees the other one already in the shop and is like, oh, that one is the one I'm meeting, and I don't like them, so I'm just going to toy with them and mess with them and make them think that the person that they're waiting for didn't show up, and then there's all kinds of back and forth about everything, and it has a sweet ending where they get together in the end. You've Got Mail is a 40-year plus update to this story, but it has enough story beats that are added to the story that it actually makes it a better story, as opposed to not necessarily that's something different, but there's enough extra beats thrown in that it improves, I think, the overall experience. Not to throw any shade on Van Johnson and Judy Garland, because they are titans of their day, but the story beats and things are complementary additions. They're not, hey, let's throw this in here because we feel like it. Ha! Or let's just change this character's personality entirely because we think it would be better this way. No. If you have an established character, you keep the character the same way. And that is something that is being lost entirely on, apparently, in the minds of Hollywood for all of their productions, not just the potential Avatar update. And I keep hearing, this is something else I'm worried about with, apparently they're going to be doing a live action adaptation of Cowboy Bebop, which is I don't know if I can say it's my favorite anime, but if it's not, it's number 2. It's way, way, way up there. It is just golden all the way through. And I keep hearing about just little snippets. It sounded like it was never going to happen, and then it was, and they had casting, and then those were the wrong people, and then they got different people, and then they got this people, and they start filming, and then one of them breaks his leg, and I'm like, man, somebody shouldn't have said that time. But that's an actor joke. But I keep hearing all these updates and things that they're going to do to make it more relevant for today, and I'm like, we have our society, our artistic community has lost the entire concept of the timeless story. Like, Cinderella is a timeless story. Lord of the Rings is a timeless story. Pulp Fiction is a timeless story. It doesn't matter what time you interact, at what point in history you interact with the source material, you always get the same experience. You always get to connect with that basis. And we've just lost sight of that completely in terms of our production, because we're like, oh, well, if we just change things up, we can make it better for me, or for how I think things should be. And it's like, no. It is a timeless story. If you're going to remake it, okay, but as much as possible, leave it alone. We don't need all your extra crap thrown in. Nobody wants your extra crap thrown in. We like this because it is this. You can complement it, but don't change it. Is that too much to ask?
Probably.
Anyway, getting back to responsibility. I will get through
Bringing it
this.
back in.
That was a nice long detour. As we say in the preaching profession, that was for free. By the way,
That is something preachers say.
if you are ever in service and the preacher's been going a long time and all of a sudden he says that was for free, be very, very, very concerned, because that probably means he's been off his notes for 20 minutes and now he's going to get back to his regular message, of which there's at least 30 minutes left. I have never met a preacher who can do that was for free in less than 10 minutes. Never. Now sometimes those are great additions. Again, complimentary, but not the focus. And some preachers, they just get on that bent and they're like, I am going to preach the thing that I came here today to preach. And I don't care if I took 3 hours more to do it than I planned to. I had good thoughts while I was up here, dadgummit, and we're gonna preach this too. It's like, okay. There's a great maxim that is taught to everybody that pretty much everybody who gets into preaching ignores, and that is that the mind can only absorb what the seat can endure. And unfortunately, that gets ignored a lot. But also not the point. Other things. Responsibility. Trying to get this. So
Tangent.
So
there is a point where you're just going to have to abandon the original concept.
I will power through. Okay. So the tangent I was just on about a preacher getting an idea in his head and he's going to finish it no matter how many rabbit trails it takes to get there.
Yeah, we know you're a preacher.
Yep. Prepare yourself. There's at least 30 minutes left of this, and I'm going to get to it. It may take 3 hours to get those 30 minutes in, but I'm going to get to it. So as people progress into a new transition, they're taking responsibility for their life. There are different considerations that come into play depending on what your priorities are. And I'm going to use myself and another couple that I know as an example. I'm not going to say who they are. I don't think anybody really would know them who would hear this. Sorry, Sass, they're not family members, as many of those as we have. But there's a couple that I know that they were briefly in one of the churches that I'm involved with, and that is a multiple choice answer beyond just two. But they were briefly in one of the churches that I was involved with. They were there for about a year, and after about a year, they just picked up and left. And they didn't really have a reason for leaving. They didn't have a destination they were going to. They didn't have any plans to do once they moved to their new place. They just like, oh, we should move. Okay, let's do it. And then they did. And there was not really any jobs where they moved. There wasn't a better apartment or house where they moved. There wasn't a church within like 50 miles of them, and they were very church-minded people. They just got moved. And I'm like, but why? Why would you remove yourself from a good-paying job, a decent house, a good church? My mindset, like, what is your priority here? How did you come to this decision? What was your thought process?
Thought process?
I know. It's a novel concept for some people, and I really wish it wasn't. So I'm planning to move right now from where I am to a new place. Same scenario, except totally different. Because I'm not moving there out of whim. I'm moving there because I want to go to this church full time, and driving an hour both ways to get there back and forth 3 times a week is not really a tenable situation. I mean, yeah, you can do it, but it's not going to be pleasant, and you're going to be losing a lot of time. And here in America, time is money. Deal with it. Just deal with it. And as much as we all don't want to be, caught up in money, we kind of need it to live and breathe. I mean, short of breathing, money is required for just about everything. unless you go off in the woods and don't come back. But that's a whole other story. And not currently.
It's a whole other thing.
We're leaving that alone. And actually, even if that too can cost money, if you do it in the wrong place and the government finds you, they're going to fine you at the wazoo. And then because you haven't been working for 6 years, they're going to throw you in jail. Yay! Off the grid is never as off the grid as you hope it is. But I'm moving to this location with the intention of I'm going to go from one church to a new church. Step one. That is my goal, my purpose. To support that, I am going to be changing my residence so that I am closer, so that I have less driving distance. To accommodate that further, I am planning on switching jobs so that I don't have to drive an hour to work every day. Also, not a tenable situation. Everything followed from my primary goal. My primary goal was to eventually end up as a full-time minister. From my intention to be a full-time minister, I realized the place that I was at was not going to be facilitating that goal in the short or the long term. I mean, yeah, I guess in the long term, if I want to wait 30 years for enough other people to not be ministers anymore, in as polite and conscientious ways I can say that. Some of them are kind of old. You can fill in the blanks. In 30 years, it's going to be there's going to be less of them. It's just how life works. I don't really want to wait 30 years. I think that what I have been called to do by God, who I serve with reckless abandon, is a little bit more time sensitive than in 30 years I'll get around to it. So I need to put myself in the best position possible to accommodate that, to accommodate what that call that I feel on my life. So I'm moving to a new place, which will better accommodate that goal. In order to do that, I am willing to change just about everything else about my life to accommodate that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a well-considered, well-thought-out process with a positive step towards the ultimate end goal, and everything along the way falls into place. I don't understand people who just like, I'm going to go do this thing. Why? and usually the thing that they come up with to do is the most stupid, generally nobody would do this because it's just a bad idea. And they're like, this is the greatest occurrence to my mind that has ever come into my gray matter. I should do this immediately. And you're like, why? I don't understand. Does anyone not help? Someone help this person. They don't, not what you do. Am I making sense to you, Masters?
You generally do.
That's a problem.
Sadly.
I mean, and this breaks down further. It's like, I'm not saying that everyone else has to order their life the same way I do, but having a general idea of how you are going to order your life will probably do you much better in the long term and the short term than just winging it. I mean, I've had a lot of plans that have come up over the years that have been, in my mind, in accordance with this plan, with the plan with the trajectory that I see my life on, that have not gone through. That something has gone wrong. I got sick for 3 years. All kinds of weirdness happens. You cannot foresee those things. You just have to make do with what you have. But that being the case, you can't just wait for stuff to happen to you. Sometimes you have to affect change in your own life, but just doing something differently for the heck of it is not going to be the most positive thing that you can do. You take responsibility. You have to not just make a change, but make a change that has the highest potential for positive outcome. Is that, again, it doesn't seem like that's too much to ask. And I know I'm gonna avoid getting deep into this, but I think that a lot of the American problems going on right now would probably be solved in very short order if everyone just took a deep breath and considered, is the thing that I'm about to do the most effective way to achieve a positive result in the thing that I'm trying to get accomplished. And if everyone just took 3 seconds to ask themselves that question, I think a lot of the issues in America right now would not be issues at all. Just going to say that and move on. Is that fair?
I mean, can't argue with points that aren't there.
I mean, you can. Yeah. I don't know. It's just frustrating to me because, and maybe part of that my frustration does come from a lack, or my perceived lack of progress up to this point. Because I do, again, perhaps I overconsider. We talked a little bit about that, where in my mind I get this, 8-word message, and I extrapolate potential intent from a young lady in it because of 3 words that she used. But she did use those 3 words. So
it's like, I may be wrong, but I could be right.
You're right. Yeah. I understand sometimes I'm ridiculous. A lot of times I'm ridiculous.
Sometimes?
A lot of times.
Okay, that's better.
Yeah.
That's better.
But with that being the case, it's like you have to understand yourself. You have to understand the situation you're in. You have to understand the people that you're working with, and you have to, not kowtow and fall under to because for the heck of it, but just understand the things that you're doing and why you're doing them. Just do that. Just do it. Come on.
Do we need to get Shia LaBeouf in here?
No, I'm trying not to. Really trying not to. It's just I don't. But I've seen other people who have approached life in a much less considered manner and have had much better results, and that perhaps to me is the most frustrating thing possible. Because they did just wing it. Or they went into something totally blind, having been in something else for a long, long time. And okay, let's just say. So I know someone who was in a relationship, was dating a girl for 5-6 years. And
wow.
Yeah. And a few years ago, they broke up with her, and within 5 months, they were engaged to somebody else, and within 3 months after that, they were married. And I mean, I am not a, I am a proponent of short engagements. I'm a proponent of those, mostly because this is one of those preacher things. We're going to go on a little side tangent here. I have a lot of preacher friends. I have a lot of preachers who are trying to give me helpful advice along the way, not just in terms of developing into a preacher, but developing into a respectable human being. And one of the things that everyone keeps telling me, aside from the fact that I need to get married, which I'm like, okay, but to who? That's kind of the most important part of this. And they're like, well, you should get married. I'm like,
And I agree.
In fairness, a couple of them have made some suggestions. I have turned down all of those suggestions. But in fairness,
trust me, I've got plenty of suggestions coming around me as well.
Yeah, so but in fairness,
none of which I am interested in.
Some of them have made some suggestions. It's like, okay, I can understand your suggestion, but so I cannot cast shade upon all of them. But some of them just like, oh yeah, you should be married by now. And I'm like, well, okay, but I'm not opposed to that idea, but the person that you're presenting or not presenting is not sufficient to the task, as it were. I know me. I'm a lot to put up with. You can ask Masters.
Amen.
And you've only had to put up with me for a week.
I put up with you almost every day.
But not full time.
Yeah, not full. I do get a break.
You do.
A reprieve, if you will.
That's the best way to put it. Reprieve. That's a great word. I like that word. It's just a nice word to say. Reprieve. You can almost sigh when you say it. Reprieve. Oh. Anyway, So I am very considered in what in you know in how I'm pursuing or not pursuing young ladies. That being the case, like
Well, you're starting to get to the point where they're not so young anymore.
hey, half your age plus 7. I am still eligible for a 22-year-old. At least for a couple more weeks. Yeah. Wait a second. Ooh. I'm trying to do math here now. Yeah, I'm still good. I'm actually still good for a 22-year-old for another full year. So, ha. I don't know any 22-year-old who would actually look at me seriously. Though maybe I don't need them to look at me seriously. Maybe I have jokes. Or not.
You have jokes?
Nope. Apparently not. But yeah, so I'm trying to do the best that I can because, hey, I understand. At least in my mind, I understand what I'm bringing to the table. I'm not particularly well off. I don't come from money. I'm not particularly good looking. I don't know why people in certain aspects of my online persona have been obsessed to varying degrees with seeing my face. I've seen it. I see it every morning. I can see it right now. You guys are not missing a whole lot. There's not. Masters again can probably verify on this one. Not the most attractive person you're ever going to see. Not by a long shot. So I understand all this. I understand that I'm going into, in the United States, there are 5 professions which are considered the lowest potential earning, or the lowest earning potential. I'm planning on being a full-time minister, which is number 4 out of 5 of the lowest earning potential in the United States. I'm not looking at being rich in the future, folks. So I'm walking in with my eyes wide open, going, most women are probably not going to look at that and be like, that is a horse I'm going to hitch my wagon to. Yeah, I have no misconceptions about that whatsoever. That being said, perhaps there is some young lady out there who would be of a willing mindset. Just haven't met her yet. It's a great song. Actually, they're okay. There are 2 songs about that. Michael Bublé does one called "I Just Haven't Met You Yet," and then there's an older song from the Rodgers and Hammerstein musical "Seven Brides for Seven Brothers" called "Bless Your Beautiful Hide." Also has the same mentality behind it, but it has a lot more direct wording. If you have not seen that song, you should definitely, if you've not heard that song, you should, number 1, watch the movie, because the movie with is just amazing.
What movie?
7 Brides for Seven Brothers.
Oh.
It is classic Hollywood panache.
Never heard of it.
It's so good. It's a Rodgers and Hammerstein musical. It is sung beautifully. I'm trying to remember the guy's name who is the lead on it. And I've seen almost all of his movies, which is really frustrating because I can't remember his name right now. But it is just great. And the song in particular, "Bless Your Beautiful Hide," again, very direct language. But what is his name? I'm now looking it up. Here we go. Who's this guy? Howard Keel. There we go. A big strapping man. Howard Keel. And you kind of have to describe him in that tone of voice. The big strapping man, because that's exactly the character that he plays in this film, and pretty much every film that he plays ever. Great actor, great movie, fantastic music, very, very direct in a lot of things that it says and talks about. But it's mostly right from what we're learning psychologically with human beings. Not at all a politically correct movie by today's standards. At all.
Are any of the good movies?
No, absolutely not. Oh man, he did so many good stuff. Such good stuff. Is that not on my watch list? Okay, sorry, I got distracted by.
You get distracted?
I got distracted by classic movies, and I love classic movies.
I never get distracted during these.
Clearly not, as you're dying and walking through the nether.
I gave up on that. I have no armor or anything now.
Oh,
I fell in lava.
you did.
Didn't I say that?
You did say that, yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. We're up on that. But again, just watch the movie. If not watch the movie, at least look up that song. It'll give you a chuckle, or a moment of severe self-reflection. One of the two. I'm good with either one. He also.
I'm not much of a music person. However,
I disagree with your statement.
There are. What?
I disagree with your self-representation that you just gave, that I'm not much of a music person.
Okay, so I think the problem is I'm too much of a music person. The problem I have is music gets stuck in my head way too easily.
Uh-huh.
And so I try to avoid music to avoid that circumstance.
Yep.
Because I have enough going on in my head. I don't need, show tunes as well.
I am actually having that problem right now.
Yeah, well, for the past week I've had Alexander Hamilton in my head nonstop because I finally broke down and watched the movie to see what all the fuss was about.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it didn't strike me the way that, like, The Greatest Showman did.
Yeah.
So I don't see what all the hubbub is about. But anyways,
okay.
That song stuck in my head.
Okay.
But anyways, the point I was trying to make before you interrupted me, you've talked enough, sir.
Okay.
Is that there are points in my life where I have just, like, something big happened in my life and I was just didn't know how to deal with it, and I would turn on the radio and God would have the perfect song on the radio for me at that time, and I would go and purchase that song and just listen to it nonstop until I got over it.
Right.
And so I actually have a couple, maybe 3. I haven't had that many big moments in my life. I'm only 30.
You've had a couple.
But yeah, you're something you said made me think of that.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I don't remember what my point was.
Your point was that you're not. You said initially that you're not that big of a music person. Then you said, "Well, no, I'm actually a very big music person. I'm just trying to get things not to be an earworm." And I was going to say, number one, that you're crazy if you don't think that Hamilton is fantastic. I will agree. I do prefer The Greatest Showman as a musical. I'm very happy to hear that it's going to become.
Yeah, like I said, the Alexander Hamilton wasn't bad. I didn't dislike it. I'm not like turn that off when it comes on, but like I don't see like why it was sold out for months and months and months and why it's now. I mean, I don't.
I can explain a little bit of that because I think I appreciate it more than you do. Not saying that you were wrong. Because everything is subjective. But I did want to give you some good news in case you hadn't heard that The Greatest Showman is coming to Disney Plus.
I own The Greatest Showman.
I don't, so I'm very happy to hear that. Plus, I can hear it anywhere. I can be on a plane, on a train. Never mind. We're gonna get off of Dr. Seuss. But yeah, it's coming to Disney Plus. I'm very excited to hear that because I love The Greatest Showman and I want to hear it more and I want to memorize every song that I haven't memorized yet, and it's going to be great. That being said, I don't think I will ever do that with Hamilton because I have learned a little bit more about Hamilton and how, like, the production behind it. And although I do speak very quickly normally, there are certain songs in Hamilton where you're speaking in order to sing them properly, you would have to sing or rap, whatever it is, at a rate of 6 words per second. And that is just a little bit outside of my comfortable speaking rate. My cadence, however fast as it normally is not that fast. I don't know how you do that and enunciate in any way, shape, or form. And I remember hearing that song and going, I don't know if I actually heard words in that. That's a little too fast. And Hamilton in general has a singing rate, or a dialogue rate, I guess, either way, of about 144 words a minute, which, in case you weren't aware, is a lot. A lot. Like the next fastest produced or fastest flowing play or stage or musical, whatever else it is, would be about 80 words per minute. It's booming fast. It's just zip, we're going. That being said, you were talking about not wanting to get an earworm, and I was saying I have that issue because of Hamilton. I cannot get "You'll Be Back" out of my head. Every single day, I'll just be walking, waking up, like brushing my teeth, and be like, "You'll be back like before," and I'm like, "That's just a problem. I can't. I gotta get this stupid song out of my head. I don't know how." I do understand though. Although I will say this is the first song I've heard in a very long time that has been this much of an earworm where I literally cannot get it out of my head. Yeah, but I understand a little bit about what you're saying about, not wanting to cloud the mind, as it were, with ancillary music. But I fundamentally disagree with your self-classification that you are not a music person, because lest you should forget, we had a Disney D&D session earlier.
Disney's different.
Disney's not different. Disney is the like the root problem of all earworms. Like, if there is a problem with an earworm, it's because of Disney. Just. By the way, that was a great campaign. I really enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun. Odd thought about that. I have been playing video games, and I know you have as well, for a long time. It's kind of our generational culture. It's what we did. It's what we do. It's what we still do. We play video games.
What we do.
Yeah. That being said, I'm seeing a rather substantial shift in our age bracket's gaming community to more Dungeons and Dragons role-playing-esque games as opposed to video games. I'm seeing a lot of people just being like, yeah, we're just going to throw down and do this instead. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just kind of curious as to how that is happening, because I know for the first 3 decades of my life, the general how do you say this? The general projection of Dungeons and Dragons was, oh, well, that's the nerdy thing. You don't want to be involved with that. Why would you do? And then, so on and so forth. Like, that was for the nerds, the uncool people. I mean, not that we've ever been cool. At least I haven't been. But, like, the Dungeons and Dragons players were considered, like, the lowest rung of humanity. And now it is, at least within my circle, becoming a much, much more, not just socially acceptable, but socially almost desirable thing to be involved in. And
well, it's not so much that for me. For me, it was more things of this nature were considered of the devil in my family.
Okay.
Like I couldn't even watch Harry Potter growing up or read the books.
Okay.
Because it was witchcraft.
Right.
It has only been within the past 15 years or so that my parents have finally come around to the realization that fantasy and fiction in that regard is not of the devil and is a great creative outlet and outlet for a lot of other things. That it's no different than Star Wars or anything like that. There's still a couple of things that they haven't come around on, like Magic the Gathering. They have literally thrown away boxes of my own cards that I purchased that were in my personal vehicle when they drove it one time because they saw them. Literally thousands of dollars worth of cards.
Yeesh.
I didn't pay that much for them, but that's how much they were worth.
Right. I understand that a little bit. I was raised in a very strict Christian home. And there was definitely some things that were like frowned upon. But I was never really like prevented from doing certain things. My family kind of had a let's see how this goes sort of mentality. There were definitely some people in our church who were just like, hey, you cannot do this. Like, and I was for the first, like, what was it? Up until like 8th grade or something, I was going to a Christian school, and they had a hard and fast ban on Pokemon because it's pocket monsters and they're demons and this, that, and the other. And it's like, well, no, that's not actually what that is.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. That's you're wrong. we can verifiably say that is not the case. And my parents, thankfully, were like, hey, let's if he's interested, let's let him have it.
Yep.
And let's see what happens.
That was definitely not my parents' thought. My parents were very much in the camp of demon animals in your pocket kind of thing. Like, and the cards will suck the soul out of your body and sacrifice it to Bahamut.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one issue that I do have with D&D. I'm not.
Yeah, I don't like the religion side of D&D, but
I don't even so much have a problem with that. I just have a problem with some parts of the religion actually using certain names for their deities that actually have real world counterparts. That being one of them.
True.
Like I'm not saying that well, I'm a Christian who believes in the spiritual expression of the things of God, and that being said, I also have to believe with the counter to that. I have seen things that are definitely not of God that must come from a spiritual origin, and I've heard stories from too many people otherwise who've seen very similar things to deny that the existence of that. Do I think that you're going to go directly to hell because you mentioned the word or the name Bahamut one time? Absolutely not. If so, then I've just condemned myself to hell. Do I think you should be interacting with that name on a frequent basis? Probably not. So I think that is one aspect of D&D that I'm not really a fan of. But that is one part that you can pretty easily mitigate overall just by changing the name. I believe that there is power in names, and I believe that you should be aware of that and be wary of that. That being, I'm not going to get into that because that's getting on the personal side of things. That people who are, leaving that where it lies. I think that you should be careful, but I think you should also. There are some things you shouldn't just discount out of hand. And I think that, especially in the 90s, that there was a lot of things that just got discounted out of hand. I never got into Harry Potter. It was available to me. It was open to me. I could have pursued it. I never did. Maybe because it wasn't I mean, I had some friends who were like diehard Harry Potter friends who were in the church, but it never really appealed to me the way that like Lord of the Rings did, or the Chronicles of Narnia or things like that. So I didn't get into it. So again, different strokes for different folks. I know some people who were also in that same church who thought that because I was interested in the Chronicles of Narnia or the Lord of the Rings, that I was also, condemning myself to a life of damnation and hellfire and all this kind of stuff. It's like, no. At the very least, Chronicles of Narnia was expressly written by a very Christian man as a Christian allegory. I'm sorry you don't like the fact that it has magic in it.
Yeah.
Within the world, without saying that the Almighty God came down and robed himself in flesh and lived among us and was crucified, without saying that, to create an allegory, without just rewriting the Bible, you have to have some sort of explanation for the miraculous. And guess what? We have a catch-all term for that. We call it magic. Screw you!
Yeah. So, there... I don't know if you probably have, your Gavi. Heard of the Golden Compass?
Yes.
And how it was written by a friend of, oh my goodness, the guy that wrote Chronicles of Narnia.
C.S. Lewis.
Yes. A friend of his that was expressly anti-Christian and put things in the Golden Compass explicitly to go against what C.S. Lewis was writing.
Yes,
did you know that?
I did know that, and you are half right. He did write it.
I was paraphrasing.
Well, I mean, you're mostly
because I figured you knew.
He wrote most of it. Most of the things that he wrote into the Golden Compass to be quote unquote against Christianity, he missed the mark a little bit, and they're actually much more specifically against Catholicism. It's, the brand of Christianity called Catholicism. I have not seen the Golden Compass movie. I have not read any of the books. I haven't seen any of the there's another adaptation I think that's coming to Netflix, or already has come to Netflix. I haven't looked into it at all. I think it's actually under a different name, not the Golden Compass. But it's the exact same story premise. It's just being presented differently. Yeah.
So I brought that up to say that I've seen the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I actually enjoyed the movie, but
the critics disagree with you.
I was with my
The critics disagree with you, but go ahead.
I mean, I haven't read the books,
right?
So I have that going for me. Because I've heard it's nothing like the books. But anyways, I was with my parents one day, not even 2 years ago, and they have DVD players in their vans because they have small children.
Yes.
And one movie that they were watching on repeat was The Golden Compass.
Uh-huh.
And I was telling them about the person who wrote The Golden Compass and all this stuff. They immediately stopped playing the movie in the middle of it and broke it in half.
Uh-huh. Well,
and I was like, yeah, okay, there's the parents I grew up with.
And actually, one of the things that kind of got missed in regards to the movie is that the movie was panned by a lot of critics and some of the fans of the books precisely because certain of those anti-Catholic messages were written out of the movie. The movie actually has a much lower degree of anti-Christian sentiment than the book does. The book is like, it's there, and it's like central and paramount to the story. The movie actually takes a major step back from that. At least that's what I've heard. Haven't seen it, but from what I've heard, not just from critics, but from other people who've seen the movie who are Christians, are like, yeah, they actually took a big step back and have read the book. I have a kind of a weird mentality on this. I think that a lot of other people do. I think a lot of other people do. A lot of other people hear that something has a negative Christian bent to it, and they say, "Well, I never want to see this. This is of the devil and blah 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 blah." I disagree. I I think that we should be in the world, not of the world, which is kind of what their mentality is. Abstain from all appearance of evil, this, that, and the other. Okay, I'm on board with you. I'm on board with that mentality. We also should not be ignorant of the devil's devices. And if can be said that there is a medium in the world today that influences human decision more than anything else, it is movies, television, and just in general, the media. I think we should interact to a certain extent with some of these things that people are saying, well, it's written specifically against Christians. Okay, that is very helpful information, because now if I can go to that source and I can learn what it is that's against God or against the Christian faith, I can learn what the argument is, and then I can go back to the Bible and I can construct an argument against that.
Precisely. So, growing up, I always pleaded with my youth pastors to do series on all the other religions, specifically for that reason, and they always would come back and be like, "Oh, that's a good idea. I'll work on that," and then it never came up. Never actually learned anything about it, and I have since not followed up on that on my own to actually do some. I mean, I know a little bit about, I know very surface level things about a lot of it, the thing you told me about the Mormons last week.
Yeah,
was very interesting to me. But I'm interested in learning about all, because if you think about it, there are a lot of anti-Christian people, not necessarily anti-Christian people, but just not Christian people that know a large amount about Christianity, so that they can argue against it. Whereas Christians are all, let's avoid those other things at all cost. And so they don't know what their side of it is, so that they can go back and, build up their own arguments.
Right. I know I don't actually know the man himself, but I know of a guy who was a former Muslim, and after converting to Christianity, in Islam, when you convert from Islam, it is a death sentence upon you. Like, they issue what's called a fatwa, which is a pronouncement of death upon you. It is a ritual, very respected thing if you carry out a fatwa against someone and kill them. That's just how Islam works. Well, this guy converts from Christianity and goes back to a Muslim nation as a missionary, like his Muslim nation, where everybody knew him and knew that he converted to Christianity. And after a certain period of time, they captured him, and they were holding him in a bunker, and they started bringing him out every day to reason out why he had abandoned the Islamic faith, telling him that you're going to die. We're just going to figure out how we can prevent people from doing the same thing that you did before we kill you. And every day he would come out and he would reason with them out of the Quran as to how he became a Christian. And I cannot say as to how many people were convinced in their own mind to follow his example, but I can say that the man is not dead, and he is not in that bunker anymore. He is safe and elsewhere. And I've heard him speak a couple of times, and he's a very encouraging person to hear. So having a basis of understanding of what other religions believe as a Christian is one of the most effective ways that you can minister to them, because there's this amalgamation faith called the Baha'i faith, and they believe that there are multiple paths to God, and it's really just a matter of what flavor of the month you think is correct, which is really difficult, I think, for Baha'i churches to get converts, because it's like, oh, well, there's many ways to God. Well, I'm a Christian. Oh, well, that works. Okay, so I don't have to change anything, right? It's stupid. They believe nothing by believing everything. I think there's a scripture about that, about being carried about with every wind of doctrine, somewhere in 2 Timothy. 2 Timothy chapter 4, in case someone needs to go look for it. But with that being the case, it's beneficial to us to know kind of what other people are thinking. I have applied this in multiple facets, not just to religion. I've read the Communist Manifesto, Das Kapital, Mein Kampf, a lot of things that I really, really, really disagree with. But I've read them so that I know why I disagree with them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've read large portions of the Quran. I didn't memorize them, but I remember them, and some parts in there are really entertaining. I'm just going to let you know they're really entertaining. And some of this stuff you can use. It's not probably going to win you any friends or converts, but you can be like, so about that part where it says that Muhammad traveled all the way to the west and he saw the sun setting in a pool of muddy water. What do you guys think about that? Any thoughts on that one? I mean, are you? How much of a flat earther are you today? Gonna hold fast and true to that one, or are you gonna be like, maybe we should let that one go? Just asking for a friend. Again, you're probably not going to win any friends or converts with that, but it may. But knowing that it's in there may help. Most of the information in that regard is not helpful directly to someone who would be confrontational. I actually had an experience a couple years ago. I run a Bible study on Monday afternoons. I try not to run the Bible study, but it's me.
Yeah, you do tend to have a problem with shutting up.
Yes. So I just ran. I do run roughshod over it, and I really try not to. And actually, a couple years ago, it was a lot easier when this particular guy was there, and he's a Jehovah's Witness. And in case you aren't aware, Jehovah's Witnesses do not believe that Jesus Christ is the incarnation of God. They believe that he's a demigod, like
Hercules.
Well, not even Hercules, because Hercules had two, supposedly deific parents. They believe that that Jesus was less than God, because it goes back to Greek mysticism and Greek philosophy that God, whoever he was too pure and too powerful to actually ever appear on earth. And so they took that mentality and they approached the Christian faith with it, and they're like, well, if that's true, and they assumed that was true, then Jesus could not have actually been God. He would have had to be something less than God, because if God was to come to earth, then earth would have been destroyed because God was on earth and God is too powerful. And if you get into the Old Testament at all, you start understanding the idea of what a theophany is, or a physical incarnation of God on earth before Jesus Christ, you go, that's complete bullcrap. Get out of here. But when you start getting into, again, don't just know other people's faith, know your own faith. But getting into other people's faith and understanding what they believe is very, very beneficial, particularly as a Christian, because we are told to seek and save that which was lost. Go ye therefore into all the world and teach all nations, baptize in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. There we go. We've got it out there. We're preaching now. Dadgummit. As that is a tenet of our faith to spread. We need to know what we're encountering. We should also be aware of what may have crept in unawares. Case in point, I was in Minnesota a couple years ago. I went to the Minneapolis Museum of Art and History. And I went in there, and we were going from wing to wing to wing, and we only got to 2 wings because the girl that I was with at the time, not like with, but we were in the same place together as friends. Very important delineation. She was one of those people who just read every single plaque all the way through from top to bottom, considered the piece of art, read the plaque again, and then considered the piece of art again, and then considered it, and then perhaps went on to the next one unless you wanted to read the plaque again. So we only got through 2 wings out of 40. They have a ton of stuff in there. It's a great museum. I want to go back someday. When the city's not on fire anymore, that would be a good time. As soon as y'all get that fire problem worked out, I'll be back. But until then, Um, I'm not coming anywhere as long as I'm fire. I mean, it's just not my thing, you know. I don't react well to the heat.
Nor do I.
So, but one of the things that
we'll have to talk about that here in a second too.
But one of the things that happened is we were going through the Indian portion of the we went through the Indian wing and went through the African wing, and they just kind of like broadly put Africa in there. I'm like, well, is it Zulu? Is it Sutu? Is it Zimbabwean? I mean, what are we talking about here? Swahili? And some of the people there were not happy with me because I delineate Africa to countries as opposed to just being the continent of Africa, which was really funny today because we had two different people say the country of Africa. Oh my word! I wanted to kill people.
Africa is not a country.
You two people who are not watching this,
I had to say that so many times today.
By the way,
talk about idiot.
By the way, yes. Everyone was cheating on that question, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
We certainly did not Google the picture of the map.
The whole point of it was not necessarily... the point of it was to stall out, to actually give some sort of semblance of... Danger, yes. There in that last fight. Which at any point, any of you could have gone up and removed him from the pedestal.
Yeah, we didn't do that.
None of you did. And then at the end, they were like, do we just go get him? Do we just go... What would you do in that circumstance? Would you just stand there and look at him as it happened to him?
Apparently not.
Imagine you are that person. What would you do?
Well, I was fighting Sean Yu, so I'm safe. Oh man, rip Baymax.
There were actually supposed to be more people in that last fight, but we had a bunch of people that needed to go.
Yeah.
So I just chopped it down to him, and
that was enough.
It was still fun though.
He almost killed me. Actually, he didn't. I had something holding in reserve that I could have used to not die.
Yeah, well, he had he could have healed himself up, but I was just like, no, we just need to. This needs to be over with.
Yeah, and and just table talk. That's a sign of a good DM where you're like, okay, we've been here long enough. Let's wrap this up, and then finding a way to do it without making it seem like you're doing that.
Yeah,
but. What was it we were talking about? Africa, India. Okay, so in India, I was spending about 3 hours in the Indian art section of this particular museum. And so you're looking at all of their, carvings and castings of their 1,000+ gods of Hinduism, and I'm like, okay, this is interesting. This is not really, again, I'm Christian. This is not really my thing. But we're here. Let's learn. So I read some of the plaques. I walked around the entire thing like 6 times, and she's still in the first room, and I'm like, okay, it's gonna be one of these. And so I ended up circling back around and reading some more of the plaques, and it started talking about why the Hindu gods are positioned in the ways that they are, and why that their hands are in this way and this kind of thing. Okay, well that kind of makes sense. And I can see why they would do that. It's kind of weird, but I mean, I guess if you're trying to communicate something without using words, just through a statue, that's a pretty good way to do it. And everyone who was making those statues, hundreds of years ago, were all kind of the same mentality in making them. So it was easy it was kind of like meme culture if you really get into it, because you take something which is generally well known and you apply it in multiple different situations to communicate your intent. So, you take your picture from, Space Jam or whatever, you put a funny caption on it, and everyone gets the reference from Space Jam, and like, oh, I can relate to you now. But they're taking, it's really kind of cool how they did it. Well, after that, she goes, well, I want to see some, I've heard they're in St. Paul, I believe. It's actually not Minneapolis, the Twin Cities. They have St. Mary's Basilica, and it's one of the most ornate churches in America. And she says, well, I want to go there and look at the architecture. And I'm like, Have we not had enough architecture today? Okay, let's go see the architecture. And there's a couple things that happened there that were not particularly to my liking, but I will try to avoid one of them because I get really upset about that. But one of the curiosities to me that happened is that we're walking through and they have all these very beautiful, ornate stained glass windows, which are works of art unto themselves. But in particular, at St. Mary's Basilica in Minneapolis, St. Paul, they have this row on both sides of the sanctuary of stained glass windows that are of saints of the church. And I'm looking at the saints of the church, having just left the art museum in the Indian wing, and I'm like, wait a second. These guys are positioned in precisely the same ways as the Hindu gods and stuff were. Like, their hands are in this way, and they have the halo around their head, and they're doing this, and I'm like, there's a lot of Indian Eastern mysticism that influenced that particular work of art, because the Hindu stuff was dated like 600 years before that thing ever had a chance to become a thing. At least 600 years before that thing ever had a chance to become a thing. And it's very interesting how that portion of another religion found its way into not my religion, but an offshoot perhaps of what could be considered to be my religion. Catholics are Christians. They acknowledge that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. They are Christian. They're not my preferred brand of Christian. I have a lot of disagreements on them doctrinally and procedurally and everything else, but they are Christian, and that is now an extra thing that I can point to be like, you are Christian, but you're also something else. Like, I can look at that and I can look at this and I say those two things are the exact same thing. And like they're saying, one of the things was like you can't use this now because it's white supremacy, but the OK symbol, okay, the OK sign with your hand, right? Or F in sign language. That is used to denote peace and prosperity and love and all in the Indian culture, and that was like how they're putting the hands of their artwork of the stained glass windows of their patron saints.
That
I'm
reminds me.
And I'm like, wait a second. Number one, white supremacist. Number two, you got some issues here because you're lifting this exact same communicative, nonverbal language from a non-Christian thing, and you're trying to Christify it. And I mean,
yeah,
I have a problem with that.
That reminds me of the time that I drew a yin and yang symbol on my uncle's. We went bowling, and we all got to sign a pin for his birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And I put a yin and yang symbol on it. Like, I learned what it was in the past week, and so I drew it on there and then signed my name to it. And my daddy almost pitched a fit.
Uh-huh.
Because I put that on there.
Yeah.
I was like, what? It just means peace.
And actually, it doesn't even mean that. So, it means balance.
Yes. I was like 12.
Thank you, Avatar. That's actually more true than I want to admit it is, but I've already admitted that it's true, so here we go. Yeah, so it's be aware of what you're interacting with. You're saying that you haven't really followed up on learning more about other cultures and other religions. Can I make two book recommendations for you?
Absolutely, because the main reason I haven't is because I don't read.
Mm-hmm.
Typically.
Right.
And it's due in part to the fact that I have trouble focusing on books for a long time, and my mind wanders and all this other stuff. And so it takes me a long time to read on top of my dyslexia.
Right.
And so I just avoid books altogether. But I made a conscious decision while I was vacationing, quote unquote, last week, that I wanted to start reading physical books more.
Mm-hmm.
Just to, because it'll help my vocabulary for D&D,
Right.
and B, it will give me more information.
Well,
And so,
go ahead.
so I'm going to try and start reading more, which I haven't done. I haven't started actually doing yet because I don't have any physical books because I've avoided them for so long, and I don't want to go out into public to get them.
Right.
So,
well, you can get these on Amazon. I know because I purchased them through Amazon. And they're both by the same author. He is one of the foremost Christian apologists in the world today. His name is Ravi Zacharias. He is a former Hindu who has converted to Christianity. And he wrote a pair of books. Actually, he's
I
written
don't like that phrase, Christian apologist.
when you understand what it means, it's actually super cool.
I mean, I understand what it means. I just don't I don't feel like it's like I don't feel like we need to apologize for it.
Well, that's because apologetics doesn't have anything to do with apologizing. Not as we understand it now.
Well,
it's an
yes,
explanation.
I'm aware of that.
But, you know, I know the common current day vernacular is not congruent with the actual meaning of the word. But he's written 2 books on this topic. The first one he wrote is Jesus Among Other Gods, and the other one was Jesus Among Secular Gods. And the one, Jesus Among Other Gods, compares Jesus to other religions in the world like Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, Shintoism, a bunch of other things, even like Judaism, because the Christian belief in God and the Jewish belief in God, while it should be, according to the Bible, completely meshed together, a lot of Jews disagree with that. Practically all of them.
That's okay. Before I make the statement, I'm going to clarify that because I was doing as normal, doing 12 things at once. So I want to clarify before I say anything to make myself look stupid. That you just said something about Jesus being the same. It should be the same in Judaism as it is in Christianity, but they're not.
They are not perceived to be. The Jews tend to not have the same view of Jesus Christ as Christians do. There is a separate sect of Jews called Messianic Jews who do believe that Jesus Christ is the Messiah, but the vast majority of them do not.
So yay. I listened good. So that points back to the passage in the Bible where it talks about how the Pharisees spread the rumor after Jesus was risen.
Mm-hmm.
Spread the rumor that that it wasn't real.
Right.
And like it even specifies in the Bible that Jews believe this to this day.
Actually, that's close, but not quite. Well, they do believe that to this day. But what's actually being referenced there is that the Pharisees had paid off the guards to say that his disciples came and stole the body.
Yeah. Well,
under Roman law, which they were being governed by, and those were Roman troops who were at the tomb. They were not Roman troops because Pilate said, "You have a watch. Make it as secure as you can." So it was actually their private security force that were there. Under Roman law, if you fell asleep on duty, you were executed. And the angel came down and put everyone to sleep before they rolled the stone away. So all those guards should have died. But in order to preserve the idea that this did not happen, they preserved all of those men alive so that they could spread the rumor that the disciples had come and stolen the body. And that payoff was the thing that was being referenced, is widely known to all the Jews today. But a lot of Jews still didn't believe. Even Paul, when you watch his life go through the book of Acts, he would always go to a new city. Whenever you go to a new city, he would always first go to the synagogues and he would preach to the Jews because that's what his training was in. He was trained at the feet of Gamaliel, who was one of the foremost scholar. He was the foremost scholar in those days on Jewish law and the Old Testament and everything else like that. And so Paul, being his disciple, was welcomed with open arms. I learned at the feet of Gamaliel. Please come. We are so happy that you're here. And then he would say, and then this was Jesus, who was the Son of God. We have an objection. And then they'd throw him out, and then they'd turn the city against him, and he'd go and he'd preach to the Gentiles, because that's what his actual calling was. But he always tried first to reach the Jews, because those were his people. That was what he loved. That was what he was most comfortable in doing. But his reasoning was required to reach the Gentiles, which is cool. We don't get the assignment we always want, but we get the one that we're best suited for. There we go. Or the one that God best suits us for. However you want to take that. In that regard, Jews today, still the vast majority of them do not view Jesus Christ as being the Messiah. In fact, I've heard one of okay, so you've heard of Ben Shapiro, have you?
I've heard the name.
Yeah, he's a political commentator, but he's a very, very devout Jew. And he has said within the last couple of years on multiple occasions that his view of Jesus Christ is as a rabble-rouser and a revolutionary and a lot of other negative things about him. He has no respect for the man Christ Jesus. And I'm like, okay, I mean, I can't change his mind. But I fundamentally disagree with what he says. In that regard, I agree with a lot of other things that he says, but that in particular, I really disagree, because that's something that we're just not going to agree on, And I gotta be careful how I'm saying this. Until things which are spiritually discerned are revealed to his eyes. Put it that way. Yeah, something like that. So, and he actually did an hour-long interview online with Ravi Zacharias about 2 years ago, and Ravi Zacharias was like, "Hey, the guy that you've been looking for is the Jewish Messiah, which the Jews are still looking for a coming Messiah. You missed him by about 2,000 years." and Ben Shapiro just kind of like laughed and shrugged it off, and was like, "We're just not going to agree on that one." But I think that was actually one of the interviews where he did say that he viewed Jesus as just being basically a common criminal. Again, not the most popular position among Christians, but he is. But here's the thing: in America, thank God, we have freedom of religion, so you can believe anything you want, and I'm not going to stop you. I may try to convince you that my way, my understanding is better, but I'm not going to say that you have to believe my way. I'm not going to try and legislate you into the ground because you don't. That's wrong. And I believe there's very strong scripture saying that. So that might be a topic for another night.
I really, really wish that politicians would get that through their thick skulls. You can't legislate morality.
Yes.
You can't legislate morality, and you can't legislate common sense.
If you could legislate morality, there would be no need for a police force. Because all you would have to do is tell people, don't do this thing, and they would not do that thing. There's a meme going around about how shopping carts are the greatest example of why we cannot have a libertarian society. And it's because a shopping cart, returning a shopping cart to the little corral area, is there's no incentive to do it. There's no penalty for not doing it. And so only about half the people will actually do it, which is why you end up driving through a parking lot somewhere and there's shopping carts all over the place in parking spaces, and you don't know what you're doing. You're trying not to hit them and scratch up your car.
My pastor says that to sin, or my old pastor.
Yeah.
Says that to sin.
I mean, I return my shopping cart. I don't know what the big problem is, but the simple fact of the matter is that because there are those people who do not get that mentality, that just because there is no penalty or reward for doing a thing.
If I'm ever walking into a Walmart or whatever, or if I'm going to put my card up and I see somebody that's about to not put their card up, I will go over to them and take it from them and take it for them.
I can't say.
And they're like, "Oh, thank you."
I can't.
It's like,
say
yeah,
that I
you
do
were
that.
just going to leave it there.
I can't say that I do that. So maybe I still have some work to do on myself. But although in fairness to myself, it's probably just that I'm not paying attention to them. I'm just focused on moving on to the next thing. I have tunnel vision issues where I'll just get focused on doing the next thing, and then I just won't do anything else that may or may not be related to that thing. Or I'll just assume it's your responsibility, you figure it out. Which may be why we've resulted in the place we are. We have too many people like me who just like, personal responsibility, you got to take care of it. But there's a lot of truth to that. If everyone would just do all the things that are, common courtesy type things, we probably wouldn't have any need for a police force. Hey, don't kill people. Okay. I can honestly say I've never had a problem following that law or that commandment from the Bible. I've never had a problem with, hey, I'm going to kill this person. Never had that come up.
I've never had it actually come up.
That's an interesting phraseology. Again, I might be reading more into it here. Would you care to explain? Masters?
Yes.
Would you care to explain?
Sorry,
that statement?
JC died for the 5th time in 5 minutes.
Ah.
But no, I used to say all the time when I worked at McDonald's, if the president would just give me a pardon and 5 bullets, I could make this world a better place.
I mean, yeah.
I contemplate murder on a daily basis.
That's probably not a good thing to admit to, but
I tell people all the time that if it wasn't for Christianity, I would probably be a serial killer. It's fine. You can thank Jesus for me not murdering you.
I understand that, and I relate to that. We just lost everyone except Sasquatch. He's probably also like, yeah, I relate to that too. But
I literally had to stop watching Criminal Minds because I was becoming too attached to the serial killers.
I don't have attachment to villains in things, but I do find...
Well, not necessarily attachment, but I was finding their reasoning to be acceptable.
Okay, yeah, we have the same problem. I'm like, okay, great case in point. The vast majority of people who watched the Matrix movies, in particular the second one, hate this character because they think he adds nothing to it. I love him because he is just the slimiest weasel you could ever imagine being on screen, and all he does is slow down the story and for his own amusement. The Merovingian, and this is a person who has just drowned himself in the theoretical and how he is better than everyone else and he is above everyone and everything else is beneath him, and he's not even a part of this system because he's so much better than anything else that could possibly come up. I love his character. A lot of people hate him. They don't like the actor who portrayed him. They don't like the portrayal of him. They don't like anything that he does in that movie. They think he's the worst part of the second movie. And I'm like, no. He's awesome. And that probably shows that I have a lot of issues. I also like Agent Smith better than Neo, but that's, it's Hugo Weaving, man. Yeah, I have definitely watched more than my fair share of shows where I identify very much with the mentality behind, the villain. I can because I am a Christian, I live my life in such a way that I will never have issues with a lot of the things that people consider to be issues moralistically. I'm never going to rape someone. I'm never going to kill someone. I'm never going to steal from someone. I'm never going to do this. But without that Christianity, I can absolutely see myself being the type of person who would also not have a problem with that, but he would be very confused as to why anyone else had a problem with him doing it.
Exactly. Absolutely.
And the thing is, even from a Christian mindset, you can't even, like, the shopping cart mentality doesn't even apply to Christianity, now that I'm thinking about it, because there is a defined positive and negative to your actions, either way. Mm-hmm. And people still don't get it. Nothing, okay, I was having this conversation on Monday with my second Bible study on Monday. I have a lot of those. No, it wasn't Monday, it was on Thursday. On Thursday, I was having a different Bible study, and we were talking about this morality question, and specifically about how there can be so many Christians in name only, or self-identified Christians who do nothing to back that up, to live it out, to portray the image of Christ to the world. Like, let alone, let's not even talk about, like, the bare minimum. They don't even show up to church once a month. But they're Christians. They know that God looks on the heart. Well, God looks on the heart, and it says that out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaketh. And you ain't doing nothing. And, faith without works is dead. You aren't even showing, if you can't even be counted to show up for church on once a month, you're definitely not praying or reading your Bible at the house. I mean, there are some things that we can look substantively at your actions and say that you are also not doing this, that, and the other. And that just boggles my mind how people, again, I take a hard line on some things that a lot of the other people wouldn't. If you say that you are a Christian and you do nothing to back up that statement, I don't believe you. I do not believe that you can say you are a Christian and not do Christian things. Now, you cannot do Christian things and not be a Christian, but you cannot do Christian things. You cannot not do Christian things and still be a Christian. There we go. That's what I was trying to say. I just needed the double negative. And that's, again, it goes back to responsibility. If you say you are a thing, if you say you will do a thing, and then you do not do that thing, or you don't follow through on it, or you do the total polar opposite, again, I am probably much more hardline on a lot of Christian tenets than a lot of other people are. But all I'm trying to do is do it the way that I read it in the book. I mean, I know of a church that not just everyone comes to God however they are, and God accepts everyone, and the church should too. But that doesn't mean that the church should elevate people as they are into places of authority and respect. And I know of several churches who have elevated people who have come in or who were already there, which in my opinion was even worse, because then you were raised in the church and then you did things that were against the word of God. They're cohabitating unmarried, guy and girl, and they aren't just like, it's not just that you can piece together what's happening. They openly admit, oh yeah, we were together in bed last night and the mood hit just right. And I'm like, number one, why are you telling me this? Number two, how are you in any sort of leadership position at your church? How? And like, the girl is the pastor's daughter. They know. It's not a secret. Everyone's aware. I mean, 1 Corinthians 6, I don't know how much more clear you can get on it. We know that these things keep you out of heaven. Don't do these things. Hey, we're doing all those things. What's wrong with you? I mean, Paul says, follow me as I follow Christ. Man, we are on a very religious bent tonight. I didn't mean for us to get here, but we are on this. I'm just going to keep going with it. Follow me as I follow Christ. Do that. If you're in a position of leadership, then you should be living your life to be as Christ-like as possible. That should, and not just presenting that, not just showing that, not just making a show or an act out of it, but really, truly, deeply committing yourself to making the sacrifices necessary to be that person. Like I said, that's one of the things that gets me upset, and I see it a lot more than I think I should. I think, honestly, if not just one church or one person, if churches in general were really concerned about being Christ-like, about following God, about obeying the Bible, it would be a dramatically different world. And we would probably actually have a whole lot more people in the churches because there would be a consistent message, rather than just being like, well, over here, if you decide that this one is preaching something too hard and you don't like it, you can go across town and you can hear something else, and it will soothe your guilty conscience about doing something that's outside of the will of God or outside of the Word of God. Oh, okay, I'll go over there. You missed the point entirely. If God is God and the Bible is His Word, then we should obey the Bible. I don't see how that is in any way, shape, or form what's the word I'm looking for? Contentious or confusing. That should not be something that's going to stir up strife in the church. If we all say that we believe that the Bible is the Word of God and we are going to live our lives according to it, it shouldn't be a problem when we all go, hey, we should all live our lives according to the Word of God. That it boggles the mind as to how so many people, and I'm really trying not to pass judgment, but it's not judgment if you tell me you're doing it. It's observation at that point. Judgment is talking about motives, about intent. And I think motive and intent in that case is just you don't care or you don't know or some combination of the two. And if it's you don't know, there's an easy fix for that, and it's included in the Word of God. It says, Deuteronomy chapter 6, hear, Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord, and thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy mind, with all thy strength. And these words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart, and thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thine hand, and they shall be as frontlets between thine eyes. And put the Word of God on your door frame when you walk in and when you walk out of your house. It should be in front of your eyes. If the Word of God is not in front of your eyes, how can you ever expect to be a Christian? How can you ever expect to follow God? How can you ever expect to make it to heaven, which we're all trying to get to? If it's like trying to play a game and you don't know the rules. Well, the rules are clearly printed and they're available to everybody. Okay, not everybody. We're still trying to get it translated into all the other languages. We've got like 12 left to go. Give us time, we'll get there. But to everyone else, and there's only 200,000 people in the world who don't have it translated in their language right now. That's a very, very, very tiny number. Okay? Everyone else, we got it. You have no excuse. You just don't. It's available. Read it. If you're going to profess it, then you should live it. Is that too much to ask? But I can't compel people to do things. I know this. But I sometimes feel like the crazy one when someone tells me that they are living in sin, and I give them this sideways glance because I've been going to church with them or not necessarily going to church with them, but in case anyone from my church, I'm not talking about you, but when someone just says they've been going to church for 30, 40 years, and they just started doing, or 20, if they've been going to church their whole life, however long that's been, and they just decided to start shacking up with their girlfriend, I mean, I question your dedication. I question your foundation. I question a lot of things. If I was the pastor of your church, I would not put you in any kind of leadership position because I would then have verifiable evidence from your own mouth that you are not living the way that I want to be demonstrated to the rest of my congregation. That's what leadership is. Follow me as I follow Christ. We set an example, and then other people can follow that example to become more like Christ.
Which is why all preachers should have beards.
I agree, but I know a lot of preachers who don't. And that's actually
Maybe your new church will allow you to have.
no. They're more likely to, but not for a while. I actually did get to attend service and preach with a beard in my new church, which I'm very excited about. But I was only allowed to do it once. And I called him back. I called my pastor up like the next week. I'm like, hey, so the beard's still good? And he's like, you should probably shave it off because and he. His reasoning for saying that had nothing to do with him or his convictions or what he thinks is right or wrong. It's because as I am trying to be an aspiring minister and get into more ministerial things, there are a lot of old guard preachers who were around in the 60s and the 70s where having a beard was a sexual revolution counterculture statement. And they are still of that mindset that is what that means. And if you have one in church, then you're part of that movement. And it's like, no, that's not what that means anymore. We can get past that. I think I for one think we should go back to the way it was in the early 1900s, where if you didn't have a beard, you were considered to be effeminate. But that's a whole other story.
I can get behind that.
I like my beard.
That would make it a lot easier to identify people in public.
It certainly would. Although it did kind of cut backwards in one particular case. There's one fella I know who who converted from Islam, and in Islam, like the beard is part of their religion, and he was rejecting Islam in its entirety, and so he shaved when he converted in the 1920s, and everyone thought that he was gay, and that was a major issue, and so he had to do a lot of groundwork to explain why he was shaving his beard and not that he wasn't actually gay to all these, bearded old men going, I don't think we want to listen to this one here. He may have missed that verse in 1 Corinthians and Romans and Galatians. Yeah, so, but that's an outlier experience. But it is actually one that more proves the rule than disproves it. And it's the exception that proves the rule. But yeah, in terms of learning other religions, which is how we got on all this, I don't remember where I was going with it, but we got to a lot of places with it. Got a lot of mileage out of that one. In terms of learning about other religions, I would strongly recommend the two books, Ravi Zacharias, Jesus Among Other Gods, and then Jesus Among...
You're going to have to DM these to me.
I can do that, yes. And actually, there's like multiple YouTube videos in case the whole reading thing doesn't work out. You can still... There's like multiple lectures by the author on YouTube, which are fully available. And I mean, they're like full-on lectures. There's an open forum with him. I'm seeing that's like 6 hours long if you're in for that kind of a marathon. Which I haven't seen yet, and that might be on my agenda for some time in the next couple of weeks, because I think that's actually really cool. I like his books, and I like him. There's a couple of things that he and I disagree on, but for the most part, he's got it dead on, particularly in his relation of Jesus being the Son of God, come in the flesh. The whole 2 Timothy 3:16, for without controversy, great is the mystery of godliness. God was manifest in the flesh, seen of angels, preached unto the Gentiles, received up, received up into glory. I think I missed one. Darn it! I can't remember what it is. There's an extra qualifier in there in 1 Timothy 3:16. I'm sure Sass will let me know what that is in the comments. But that it is a great discussion on how to relate your Christian faith to other faiths, and it is a great door opener to speaking to other people who are not Christian about why you are. Not that you can convince them to not be what they are, not that you should even really try to convince them to not be what you are, because that's not really what proselytizing is. Proselytizing is saying that I have found something good. Let me tell you about it, and you make up your own mind. That's it. Mm-hmm. You don't have to ram it down their throat and, if you don't believe in the Bible, blah, blah, blah. No, that's tacit legislation or mob rule. I mean, I disagree with that 110%, and may someday make a video series on it if I ever get the gumption up to do it. But like, because it does bug me when I hear Christians saying, well, we should be legislating this. I'm like, no, we shouldn't. We really should not. We should not be voting that into a law of the land to oppress other people with our convictions and ideologies. If you want to change the culture around you, then you change the culture around you. You do not do it at the point of a gun. You become the example of the change that you want to see happen, and let other people figure out that your life is worth emulating. That's the way to do it.
I'm a big proponent of live like Jesus did, to be the light, and not preaching down to those people that don't see eye to eye with you.
Yeah.
It's like if you just emulate how Christ did things, they will ask you and give you opportunity.
I agree. I mean, and the thing is, the more you live your life according to the commandments of the Bible, the more you will find that people who are not in church will be like, hey, what about this thing? Can you give me some? I see that your life is not messed up like mine is in this area. That is what witness is. Just living your life. I forget who it was, but there's this famous quote about reaching the lost, and it says, preach the gospel at all times to all people. If necessary, use words. I love that quote. I mean, if you're a Christian, it should be oh so apparent and obvious to every single person that you meet. It should flow out of you. There's an analogy that's tired and has been used 1,000 times, but it's still accurate. Where there's where they'll like squeeze a water bottle and the water will go flying across the stage. Like, well, why did the water come out of the bottle? Because that's what was in the bottle. And when pressure was applied, what was in came out. When pressure is applied to you as a Christian, Christ should come out.
Yep.
That's just how the equation works. The unknown side of the algebraic equation should always equal up to the known side of the algebraic equation. If this is happening, then this is why. It's very simple, or at least it should be. Again, it's frustrating when people profess one thing and it doesn't work out that way. Yeah.
Yep.
Every time you say hip hip, I hear yip yip, and I expect to take off on Appa.
I'm saying yep.
Oh.
YEP.
That's even worse, because now I'm really expecting to take off on Appa. Oh.
I see no problem with this.
Yeah. It's just, it is what it is. And I'll send you those books, Masters. Or I'll send you I'll send you the Amazon links. I don't care. I think I got them both used for like less than $6. So they're not expensive either, and they're very, very good. Like I said, I don't necessarily agree with him on everything, but they're great tools to use in terms of understanding how to relate your Christian identity and your Christian walk, or just a broad Christian walk, to other religions and what they believe and how to compare that. There's a the pastor of my new church that I'm going to be going to, he has used a lot of Ravi Zacharias' stuff, and that's how I found out about these books actually a couple years ago, when I first started interacting with him. And then I think it's Ravi Zacharias who also came up with this understanding, but I could be wrong, so I'm going to try and attribute credit for it there, and if I'm wrong, then I'm sorry. But in general, the premise is that all religions, whether they are Jesus' name believing, whether they are Hindu, Muslim, Islam, whatever it is, or if they're totally atheistic, there are 4 questions that every single belief system has to answer. The question of origin, how did we get here? The question of destiny, where are we going? The question of why we're here, and hey, why are we here? Does anyone know? Do we have a purpose? Do we have no purpose? What's going on? And the final one is, why does man try so hard to be moral, yet is so bad at it? And every religion that's going to try to claim to have the truth has to have a accurate, believable, and easily communicable answer for each of those 4 questions. And we can get into that perhaps some other time as to what the answers are for other things, but I'm running out of steam. A little bit. This has been kind of an interesting week, though. I did start watching Avatar again. Probably why when you said yip yip, I'm like, oh, yip yip. I just watched the Siege of the Northern Water Tribe, I think yesterday. Yeah.
So end of book 1.
End of book 1. I'm into book 2 now. I think I'm 2 episodes in, or maybe even 3 or 4. They go by so quickly. I just love it.
Yes, 30-minute episodes after you've watched a lot of long play stuff go by really quick.
So what I'm saying, Sass, is that you should go watch.
And they're not even 30-minute episodes. They're like 24.
Yeah.
So it goes by even faster.
They're so quick. But I just love them, and they're great. But they're kind of what I was talking about really a lot earlier, about actually specifically about Avatar, about it being a timeless story. I'm noticing I've rewatched the entire series, I think 3 times through already, which is not as many as a lot of people. I know some people watch it through every year, multiple times a year, and good on them. I haven't done that. I probably am incapable of making myself do that, just because I appreciate Avatar. I love Avatar, just like I appreciate and love a lot of other things. But it's too much, too soon for me to see the same thing over and over and over again. Just because of how my mind works in relation to, media. I see it once, I remember it. And so if I'm reminded too quickly, it loses all meaning. But going through it this time, I'm seeing a couple things, not that I've necessarily missed, but that I'm appreciating in a different way because of where I am now as opposed to where I was as a person the last time I saw them. And that's cool, because that's one of the things that I really like about artwork like that. Not just the drawings, but the total artistic presentation of the drawings, the characters, the story, the dialogue, everything. The world building. That is one of that. Actually, episode 2 of book 2, the Cave of Two Lovers. Such a great bit of world building there. Has practically no benefit to the story. Like, you could take...
I would disagree to that.
I mean, there's a little bit of drawing together of Aang and Katara. A little bit.
And there's also the lore of the badger moles.
But you get that later on with Toph. Because that's who taught her earthbending.
Yes, but you are introduced to them earlier.
You're introduced to them, but I mean, like, the overall story progression would not be significantly hindered if that episode were not in there. But the broadening of the world building ideas that are presented are so much larger because that episode exists. And I really, really appreciate that. And there's some concepts and things that are presented there that I personally identified with more watching it now, as opposed to the last time I watched it, I think 4 years ago.
I've only watched it twice all the way through.
Right.
Once when it originally aired, and then once again when I bought it last year.
So I watched it when it first went through, when it first aired. I watched it when I first got sick in like 2011, and then I watched it in 2006. No, it must have been 2015, so 5 years ago. And then I'm watching it again right now. So this will be my 4th time all the way through. But yeah, I mean, it is a timeless classic. It requires nothing new to be just as good today as it was when it first came out. It requires,
And it's the rewatchability on it is amazing as well.
well, that's exactly what I was saying. Um, uh,
I may or may not only be half of it.
I figured that about an hour ago. Or was it 2 hours ago?
Is there a point to what you're trying to?
I was just bringing it back up because something that happened this past week. I'm also another thing. I'm kind of happy now that the doors, and actually I'm not going to get too much into this, but a door may be opening up specifically for a new job for me in the place that I'm going to be moving to, which I'm very excited, but I'm potentially excited about. But we're going to work through that a little later on. But the present job I'm on, I'm kind of upset at it because we were supposed to go. So we had a business meeting this morning that got canceled. Additionally, a thing that got canceled is my department was going to go after the business meeting to the gun range, which I'm a big fan of. I love going to the gun range. But because my team is separated, so only half of us are in the office at one time, and there was a potential outbreak of COVID in the office, which we still haven't had either confirmed or denied. So there would be no cross-contamination. Our employer stopped us from having a non-work hours related get-together. And I have a problem with that. I do not think employers should have that level of say in what you do in hours that they're not paying for.
Yep.
So, that's also a thing. Another reason for me to start looking for greener pastures.
Yeah, so where are these other jobs that you're looking at?
Within about, well, I mean, one of
sorry, I guess I should say what, not where.
Like where? Well, here's the longitude and latitude and longitude here, you know. The one of them is at another law office. Another one was at a funeral home, but I am really leaning away from that one because it would require the weekends. And if the reason I'm moving to this new place is to be in a church, there's kind of a thing that happens at church on Sunday that doesn't really mesh with being at the funeral home. In case that was, so I'm like, it's there, the pay is good, but I don't think that's going to work out so well. There's also apparently a lot of openings in the area to be a YouTube content administrator or something like that, like the person who reviews the content before they say whether it's monetizable or not. And I'm like, I'm interested in that, but there's absolutely no way that they would ever hire me to do it, especially if they found out about my YouTube channel. I'd be like, hey, can I be a YouTube content coordinator? Okay, give me all your information. My email address is, blah, 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 at gmail.com. Oh, you have a Gmail address. Yeah. Oh, do you have a YouTube channel? Yeah. Oh, we'll take a look at that.
I'd rather not talk about it.
Banned. Well, time to go to boot shoot, everyone. Let's go. Oh, man. Yeah, that would be the fastest way to get this channel banned. Hey, I want to sign up. Yeah, we looked at your channel. No, and you're banned. You gotta love it. Or you don't.
So I was trying to make sure your story was over before I started mine. It was the whole purpose.
Okay, sorry.
So last week we discussed on air that my air no pun intended, that my air conditioning was not working.
Yes.
So I contacted maintenance, and since how it was, so I didn't call them as an emergency type situation. They didn't actually come out until Monday. So I fiddled with it Sunday morning. Or no, I fiddled with it Saturday night before I went to bed. And it felt like it was coming out colder, but not really.
Right.
And so I finally just got so exhausted I just fell asleep. And then I woke up and the temperature was at 70 degrees.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, okay, this is bearable. So I didn't turn it off. I let it keep running, and it stayed around 70. It dipped down to about 68, maybe once or twice, but not really. And then they came in on Monday morning about 9 o'clock, and the dude came in, and I was telling him what was up, and he was like, it actually feels pretty good in here right now. And he started giving me a lecture on how to use my air conditioner. Like, he was like, now some people think that you can just turn the air conditioner on and bam, it's 60 degrees in here. And I was like, dude, I know how an air conditioner works.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sat there and just listened to him give me a lecture about how to use an air conditioner. It's not good to turn it off. Your bill will actually go up, which is total BS, by the way. And he was just giving me all this crap about it.
Right.
And how he was like basically telling me there's nothing wrong with my air conditioner. And he said, well, I'm just going to go out and check the unit just to make sure everything's good.
Right.
And so hour and a half later, I hadn't heard anything from him.
Mm-hmm. So
I thought, okay, well, he either fixed what was wrong or he found nothing wrong and just left.
Right.
Whatever. About 5 minutes after that, he knocked on my door again and came in. He goes, yeah, so, it's kind of hot outside, so the air conditioner might not be working quite as right, but I did find 2 capacitors on the unit that were blown, and I was like, oh, so there was something wrong with the air conditioner. I'm not the idiot, huh?
Yeah.
But yeah, so he fixed it, and it's been fine ever since.
See, this is one of those things where in my life I wish I actually had some level of actual marketable technical skill. I don't.
Yeah.
We talked last time about, hot smoke.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have no technical capacity, which is also one of the interesting things. Someday in the future, I may try and get into like gunsmithing or something, because I've discovered a love for guns, which I knew I liked guns, but I didn't know I loved guns until the last 6 months. I love guns. They are amazing. They're so much fun. I'm even having fun not shooting them, just taking them apart and putting them all back together. My poor Marlin Model 60. It's been in pieces so many times. Most of the gun's been in pieces a couple times, just because it's like, hey, it's fun to do. Let's field trip this thing for the heck of it. It's just a good time.
I bet.
But
yeah, that was one of the first things I did when my ex-wife's father bought her a gun. Which that's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
He bought her a gun, and so when we got it home, first thing I did was completely tear it apart and rebuild it.
Right.
Just to see how everything fit together, how everything worked, making sure that it's in a situation where I need to do something to it, I can do it. That was the first thing I did, was tear it apart and put it back together. That's just what you do when you get a new gun. You destroy it and put it back together.
Yep. I say, in terms of gun ownership, anyone who is not a gun owner, who is not currently a gun owner, or who may become one, or already is and hasn't done this, first thing you should do is figure out how to properly field strip and clean your weapon. That is number one.
Yes.
Because if something goes wrong, you will know how to fix it, or at least you have a much better idea of how to fix it, and you'll know if it's a catastrophic failure or if it's just a little thing you need to clear with some tweezers or something. I don't want to get political, but I do want to bring this up, just mention it, because I think it's something that should be mentioned in as many places as possible, because it's absolutely reprehensible. Did you hear about the lawyer couple in St. Louis?
Yes.
Yeah.
I did.
Okay. Did you hear what happened after the police came back and confiscated their guns?
No.
I didn't think so, because this is being buried everywhere, and if in any way, shape, or form, even at the end of an incredibly long podcast only one person listens to, I think this needs to get out more often. And I've done some retweeting on this on my Twitter, and I've reposted videos and things on it, because I am very, very, very upset by this. The wife there, while neither of them were particularly competent in their gun handling abilities, they both pointed their guns directly at each other multiple times. And she was kind of egregious with her gun faux pas. I am now giving her a complete pass on her gun handling, because she and her husband both knew at the time that the firearm in question was inoperable. It was a Jimenez 380 pistol, which is this cheap bottom barrel Saturday Night Special type of gun. And they had purchased it through their law firm as a means of providing evidence in a case. And they just still had it. But in order to bring it into the courthouse, they had disassembled the gun and reassembled it in such a way so that the firing pin and the striker were facing the wrong direction, so that it was completely inoperable so they could bring it in as evidence in the courtroom. And they never changed that. When the police came and collected the firearms, they took that little pistol to the precinct, broke it down, reassembled it in the correct way, and then charged her with pointing a deadly weapon at people. They altered a non-functioning weapon into a functioning weapon and then charged her with pointing a functioning weapon at people, despite the fact that she knew it was a non-functioning weapon. And that actually explains a lot of how she was handling it, because if she knew she could pull the trigger and it wasn't going to go off, no big deal. But when the government comes in, illegally takes something, and then meddles with it to make it be more dangerous, and then say that it was in that configuration when they got it from you, I'm sorry, I have a major problem with that. And I'm not saying, and I don't have any power to do anything about it. I just want people to be aware that this happened. And if this is the thing that gets my channel shut down, I don't care. We will take this to BitChute, dadgummit. I've said it a couple times.
We will take it to what?
BitChute. BITCHUTE. It's another, not this thing, but light version of it for people who get kicked off of YouTube.
So are you trying to get me to go to another live?
No.
What was it? What was the other thing that you made me sign up for?
I did not make you sign up for anything. If anything, you made me sign up for it because I was making a joke about Twitter Lite called Parler, and you're like, oh, well, if it's a
Parler, that was it.
And you're like, well, hey, if it's a thing that might turn into a thing, you should reserve your account.
Yes, well, had I heard what the thing was in the first place, I would have not suggested that it was going to turn into anything.
Well, the more people get kicked off Twitter, it might turn into a thing. More people get kicked off.
I highly doubt it.
The more people get kicked off of YouTube, the more BitChute is turning into a thing. Right now, about 40% of all the channels that I watch on YouTube are double posting on YouTube and BitChute because they are anticipating not being on YouTube past the end of this year. Now, that says a lot about the channels that I'm watching. But that also says a lot about YouTube and kicking people off. Yeah. Just pointing it out. So I'm not posting anything over there. I'm just saying, if things go south here, we have a backup.
Technically, this is a podcast, and we have several backups.
Hey, we can go anywhere that'll have us. We could create our own website and do our own in-house hosting.
Nope.
I know a guy. Actually, I know 4, 5 guys. They make great burgers. But they make better fries. Anyway.
Oh
man. Yeah. It's fun. I just wanted to make sure that was out there in as many ways, shapes, and form, and with the tiny little bit of potential influence that I might have, I want someone else to be aware of what's going on. So, people who were not aware, Sasquatch, in case you weren't aware, you are now aware. I'm not going to call out any individuals who may or may not have been involved in that proceeding, but be aware. There we go.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, I am definitely running out of steam. I have to be at church tomorrow. I got a text message from my pastor about 2 hours ago asking if I could preach an opening message tomorrow, which I am not prepared for, but I told him I would absolutely do it. So I got to prepare for that now too.
Yeah.
And
I have nothing more to say.
You haven't said hardly anything all night long.
It's been a very uneventful week for me, and you were saying lots of things that I have no input for, other than the little bit of input I gave.
Diversify.
I was listening though, mostly.
Yeah, I need to.
I would say I was listening more this week than I was last week.
I will agree with that, because last week you were just like,
hey, I was dead tired last week.
That was really funny though. Like the couple times where Ducky just disappeared in the middle of D&D earlier, and so we're playing Dungeons and Disney, as it were, and she's playing Elsa, and she goes and she's just like disappears, and we're all like, oh. Oh great! Now I'm gonna get flagged for using copyrighted music.
No, it wasn't that on key. Trust me.
Is the wrong key entirely. In case it wasn't obvious, I'm a man.
Am I a man, or am I a Muppet?
Oh, I need to watch that movie again. I've been trying to get my mom to watch that movie for the last 2 months.
Oh my goodness! So I don't know if this was on purpose, but in that movie, the two brothers, the actual male guy, I don't remember his name.
Yeah.
But he plays Marshall in How I Met Your Mother.
Yes.
And in that movie, he's basically just Marshall. Like 100%. He's just Marshall with a different name and a different girlfriend. And then when the Muppet does that song, and he looks in the mirror, and it's Jim Parsons from Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
The way Jim Parsons acts in that song, that's just Sheldon. It's like, is that as deep as you guys go? Is that's your character always? Because there was no change whatsoever.
The Muppets like to do meta jokes like that a lot. So
yeah, that's what I was wondering. I was wondering, is it a meta joke?
It's a meta
Was
joke.
it intentional?
Yes.
Or is that just as far as their acting can go?
Nope.
Because I've never seen either of them in anything else.
They've both done other things
than those two things.
And the guy, I don't know his name either. The guy who did what's his name? Now I gotta look it up. Darn it!
Yeah, I was trying not to look it up because we were trying to stop, and then I brought this thing up.
You brought it up. Other things, dadgummit. IMDb. There we go. I just saw something with Amy Adams in it. I forget what it was. Oh, no, that wasn't it. What was it? I don't know.
Oh, speaking of Amy Adams, I absolutely love the. So if you guys haven't gone and followed the suggestion we made that one time about going and following the Muppets on YouTube, go and follow the Muppets on YouTube. There is absolute gold on that channel. But anyways, I absolutely love the clip on their YouTube channel of him calling Amy to be in the movie. I thought that was gold.
Where is it? Was it him? It may not have actually been him. I thought it was him. I may be wrong. He's done a lot of other things, but most of them have been kind of in the same vein, so he might be getting a little bit typecast. Wait, is it this one? Yes, he is in a movie called Jeff Who Lives at Home. And it's kind of shot like a documentary, sort of. There's and it's very weird how it's shot, but it's just this story about this random guy. He's just a slacker, but he just ends up one day by kind of just happening into a situation where he ends up saving this little girl, and you don't see anything past that one day, but he just like happens into this thing, and you can see at the end of the film like the moment of realization where he's like, I don't know what has changed, but somehow everything is different. And it's just this very, very powerful moment where he comes to the like, and it's just this one tiny little 15-second point at the end of the film. But it's really, really, really good. But yeah, watch the Muppets. All of the Muppets. Everything Muppets! I call my cat Muppet.
They're making a comeback. They'll be, in a couple of weeks, they'll be on Disney Plus again.
Yay!
With a new show.
Oh, wait. If I'm going to say yay, it's yay! I did the arms and everything.
Yay! Kermit the Frog is going to be back on TV. Yay!
But it won't sound like that. Oh.
No, he won't sound. He'll sound more like this. I am Kermit the Frog. Actually, he sounds a lot like from Muppets Most Wanted, except he's not
he sounds
French, or was he Russian? I don't remember what.
He was. I'm not sure the guy who played him knew.
I am Kermit.
Yeah.
In fact, the more I think about it, it might be the same voice actor.
I'm pretty sure that it was the same voice actor who was playing both versions of Kermit. Pretty sure.
But no, in that movie, Kermit was Kermit.
Yeah,
it didn't sound like this Kermit.
Kermit was Kermit, but Kermit was also the bad guy.
Yes, I'm aware.
No,
of that.
I take it back. He was not. So Steve Whitmire was Kermit, and Ty Burrell was Jean-Pierre Napoleon, who was the evil Kermit. Which is funny because Ty Burrell is the French inspector who is interviewing everybody with Sam Eagle.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
That's some that is a Pink Panther joke right there. You have to really get into that one to figure that one out. That's nice. I like that. But he is not the guy who's doing Kermit now. Who is the new guy doing Kermit? New Kermit voice, since we're already here anyway. Because they do have a new guy who's been doing it for like the last 2 years.
Yeah, I had some people in the YouTube comments yell at me that he's also doing a lot of voices for Sesame Street now, and that he's actually really good at what he does, and I'm just like, no. They were like trying to get me to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I was just like, no.
Wow, this is a dark story. Didn't even realize that. They fired Steve Whitmire. they didn't like his performance or something. How did they not like his performance? He was great. Like he was handpicked by Jim Henson's wife and son. They're like, this is the guy. Wow. Disney, you did him wrong.
It's okay. We'll live. At least we're getting more Muppets.
At least we're getting more Muppets. I think that actually might be why they did put out the Rainbow Connection cover a couple weeks ago. Because they're trying to acclimate everybody to new Kermit before.
Yep.
Before they had him carry a show.
They got to. It's going to be a shock.
Yeah.
Maybe the more he does it, the better he'll get? Question mark?
I hope so. Question mark?
I really hope so.
Yeah.
I really want it to be watchable.
I want it to be more than watchable. I want it to be good.
Fair.
I mean, nothing. There is nothing worse than coming out of a movie and having nothing to say about it. At least as far as I'm concerned.
And that's saying something coming from you.
Yeah, if I come out of a movie and I have nothing to say about it, I'm like, okay, I guess that was okay. Maybe.
I guess I'll never watch this again.
Yeah.
20 years from now, I'll forget I even saw it.
No, I won't do that.
Yeah, I know you're incapable. Ooh, that reminds me. I didn't do my timesheet yesterday.
Ooh, that's a problem. That's how you get paid.
Yeah, it is how I get paid, and they yell at me when I don't do it.
Oh, that's going to be a thing when I leave my current employer, because I'm the only person in my entire department who fills out his timesheet properly. I'm the only person in my entire department who fills out a timesheet properly, and they like that. And they yeah. Anyway.
Yep, they are definitely losing something good when they lose you. I almost said it with a straight face.
Not quite. I appreciate the attempt, but anyway. Yeah. Well, I think that's a great place to leave this on a severe dig at Gavi, and we will see.
Hold on, let me do quick calculations.
Okay.
We didn't quite make it to 3 hours this time around.
Nope, we have,
but only because you didn't record the first 30 minutes of the podcast.
And actually, if funnily enough, if we had kept those first 30 minutes, we would be just about at 3 hours and 9 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. That was my point.
Just about there. Yeah. Not counting the little short recap there at the beginning, we would be almost exactly there. So yeah, that apparently that's the new time. Sorry, I messed that up. Sorry, I messed that up. Mea culpa, which is Latin for my fault. Anyway, has been fun. Thank you again, Mr. Masters, for sitting in with
Absolutely.
me. Maybe someday we'll get you as fired up as I am about things.
Yeah.
Maybe that would be a bad thing.
Yeah, that might be a bad thing.
We'd both just be yelling.
You
at
might
each
not
other
want that
the whole night. I can't on it. Anyway, yeah, fun. So
yeah, all we have to do is find a topic that me and you vehemently disagree on.
I can play devil's advocate. That might be easier.
Yes, but you have to. But in order to even do that, you have to find a topic that I am more passionate about than you, or at least as passionate about as you. I don't think a topic like that exists. I'm not a very passionate person.
Yeah, that could be, and that could. I have an idea. Well, next week we'll talk about why Six Flags is better than Disney World.
Oh, I hate you.
That'll be a very short conversation because I don't have a lot of material for that. But,
Well, you could start with the fact that they have the Looney Tunes.
yep, that would be about where it starts.
About where it ends.
Yep.
Although I did have a great, one of my most memorable moments happened at Six Flags. So.
Yeah, that's for another time. Then we'll talk about other things. So, that was
Roll credits.
Yeah, roll credits. Anyway, thank you all for tuning in. It has been fun, and by you all, I mean Sasquatch. Appreciate you, friend, cousin, all those good things. And
yeah, and Kuya, if you ever make it this far, I don't think you're gonna make it this far, but let us know that you made it this far.
As proof that you actually made it this far and weren't just skipping around, please tell us exactly what we were talking about, or a rough summation regarding our conversation about kittens in this podcast. I think that would be a very beneficial thing for you to try and, just to prove that you didn't just skip to the end. Yes. I would like to know what your thoughts were on our discussion on kittens. And with that being said,
and there's plenty of topic there for you to choose from.
Yep.
So
yep. And so with that being said, thank you all for watching. Again, Sasquatch, appreciate you. And we'll see you all next time. Goodbye.
Later.